It's all be aggressive. Like in my head when I'm fighting, like what I hear is a cheerleading squad behind me, and they're just going, be aggressive, be aggressive. And it's just like all these crazy, you know, like people holding up signs and stuff, right? And so that's the mantra of the old school sayings of like, you know, attack first, be the aggressor. There are no blocks in Kali. Like any thud is a thunk, is what they used to say. If you hear the stick go thud, it's really a thunk, which is me hitting somebody on the body. So a lot of that stuff exists, but it's on the way to attacking the next target or as a setup to the lead into the next attack. And in real life, yes, there has to be blocks. But what they're illustrating is the idea that you're not using the art defensively, you're using the art aggressively. The defensive component of it is negotiations before peacetime, is, you know, trying to do right by others so that you never find yourself in a position where you got to go burn down a village. But if I'm pulling out a sword and a gun, I'm past the point of defensive. Like, and I've accepted that. So that's this whole game. We're operating under the assumption that negotiations have failed. You know what I mean? And now we are going into, you know, a campaign, you know, and that's where the, you know, the mindset goes. And in the reality, like Ray taught us years ago, like there's no such thing as knife defense. Knife defense is a lawyer term to keep you from going to jail for murder. Knife defense means that you were knife defensing yourself over there. And I was loving it because it's like, yay, I get to pull out all my old friends. I haven't tried this one for a while. I haven't seen you. Hey buddy, how you doing? You think maybe we can hook up with Puño to the face later? I don't know, we'll see how it goes, you know? But that doesn't happen if you're blowing up my phone nonstop and I can't answer the call of like, hey, what's up, Redondo? You know, want to hang out later? Like if you're like, you're ringing, the phone's ringing, I'm like, oh, and then you're kicking the phone out of my hand. I'm like, I can't answer any calls. I'm playing your game. Angling is aggressive. Like, and that's the thing people don't understand. Yeah, I angled and you missed. But the other way to look at that is like, I changed your target, but I didn't change mine. You know what I mean? So who's behind now?
How do you sustain being aggressive for longer periods of time? Because like mine comes in like spurts and then suddenly like the energy just drops and I'm like...
Okay, so that's where you shift body mechanics from external into internal, and it's where you shift tactics. So like there are bursts. Like in the old days when they'd fight on the battlefield, they had what they call battle pulses. So it isn't like the Persians showed up and the Spartans showed up and they fought for like 6 days straight. Like, yeah, they did. But what they would have is everybody be holding a line and they'd fight for about 20 seconds and then everybody take a knee. And they just kind of like, somebody's over there like talking shit, like, yeah, look at this asshole, you know what I mean? And then fuck you, you know, and the next thing you know, they're fighting. And then, you know, then they sustain themselves. Or there's a battle pulse, you know, in other places at different times. But the idea is it's not sustainable to continually attack. But if you are controlling your center line and your center line control is the pivot point from which you absorb your opponent's energy, then your defense is offensive. And that's what I mean by it, is you're never just idling by and you're never just being tired. I'm tired a lot, but I'm tired and fighting at the same time. And what that means to me isn't that I stop fighting. It means that I start letting them supply the energy. And I'm actually a better fighter in that mode. That's why I do so much weight training. It's why I do so much like sensory deprivation and like training when I've got like an elevation mask on. Is when you're too tired to physically use your body, you start to use alignment and you start to use angles and you start to use tactics. And that's what's gonna, you know, it's the difference between being a warrior and a queen. Like the queen commands from her throne. She points a finger, the physics of the fight change, and she determines and dictates the landscape of the fight. The warrior goes in there and burns shit to the ground at whatever costs, you know, and when they run out of solutions, it's like they have a warrior's solutions. But the goal is that if you're in there and you're in the thick of it and it's time for being a warrior and you're in there and you're banging away at somebody and you're popping and hitting and now you're tired, now you back up, you take a breath, and it's time to sit on your throne and go, okay, I'm going to change the physics of this dynamic. And so they're coming in on you and now you're offlining. Now you're letting them run into you. Now you're valuing angles and pentagons versus, you know, triangles and spears, because those are all aggressive measures. And then you let them bring the fight to you, but you dictate the terms of the rules of engagement. And those are the two ways that you can balance it out. It's yin and it's yang. Yang being the active warrior mindset, yin being like, I'm gonna run shit from the throne now. And that's how I like to fight most of the time. I don't get to fight like that if somebody else also has command of the art. It brings us down to a warrior's level together. And then we just got to like romantically fight it out as two bros fighting for supremacy, you know, like, you know, Spartacus or the Highlander out on a mountain somewhere, spouting our ideologies, right? But in best case scenario, I just kind of sit back and relax and let the fight come to me and change the terms and conditions of the fight as I see fit, you know. But if you get tired, if you get too stressed out, somebody's like super untrained people do crazy stuff, like that's a factor for stress. That's why we train for trained fighters and untrained fighters. You get some stress factor that knocks you off of your ability to command the fight. You're gonna have to get in there and get dirty. And then if you're gonna have to get dirty, you might as well get fucking filthy. And that's where those techniques come out, where it's like, you know, all this stuff like non-telegraphic motion, like baiting, like horrifically destructive points of contact with acceleration. Like that's where you're just like, it's me and you, and I am going to destroy you. And that's that warrior mindset. So, and you know, they all have their pros and cons. You know, you have the peasant, the warrior, and then you have the crown. You know, me and Brice, you know, sitting at a clown bar in Tokyo, and he doesn't want to be, you know, doesn't want to be touched by a clown, and a clown starts rubbing his back, and he pushes him off. You know, and they get into a slap fight. He's fighting, you know, peasant style. You know, if he stabs him with a blade 32 times, he's warrior style. If he looks over at him and then, you know, shines a light in his eye and he wanders off into traffic, Brice is commanding his king. You know, so it's what degree of separation do you want to fight from? So, but what allows that is the things like the geometry of the fight and the ranging and a lot of the tribal, you know, the replicade and multi-person attacking, you know, situations start to bring it from that single point out. And like Miyamoto Musashi wrote about that. You know who he is?
We've talked about him.
He's like one of the most recognized duelists that ever lived in Japan, and he killed like 60 some people. And he got so good at it towards the end, he's just killing them with like wooden swords. But it was a part of his tactics. And he went to a mountain and retreated and wrote a book about the nature of killing people in duels. And it's straight combat, it's straight no BS, you know. And he talks about if you can kill one person, you can kill 10. If you can kill 10, you can kill 1,000. If you can kill 1,000, you can kill an army. And the idea of that is that, you know, once you can command a single person and all their targets, then you can start to desensitize yourself to that single target and use the same principle on a larger scale. And the more successful you come at that, the farther you can back up and the larger your area of command becomes until you're calling down, you know, missile strikes from 10,000 yards away, you know, so, or however far you need to be. So that's a really long, complicated way of saying you're not supposed to push the aggression factor the whole time.
Yeah.
You have to balance out between being horrifically aggressive and seizing control of the landscape. And like when I'm fighting with somebody and they keep running away from me, one of my go-tos is I put the sun behind my back. It's an old Musashi trick. Now they can't see, and then I walk them right into traffic if I don't like them. If I like them, I walk them into trees. And then when they turn around, they go, ah, then bam, I'm on top of them and punyo to the face every time. It worked consistently. Because if you're going to be predictable, I can now put you to purpose. That's very easy. So yeah, but in those instances, I would either have to exert horrifically as a warrior and take shots to give shots, or I can just steer them into traffic and they go away.